Hello my beautiful friend, welcome back to my channel. My name is Bettina and I'm the makeup enthusiast. In today's video I'm doing my March update on my Pan That Palette series for 2020. So if you want to know how I'm going on all my palettes at the moment, then keep on watching. This is my third update for my Pan That Palette series for 2020. Now last month I did end up rolling out a palette and I rolled in 2 palettes. So if you want to see how I'm going and how I have been going on my Pan That Palette series for 2020, I will leave a link to the playlist up in the corner here so you can like watch from my intro, you can watch my last update, and you can also watch this video which you're watching now obviously. But at the moment I have 4 palettes in my Pan That Palette series, and I did that kind of deliberately because I knew one palette in particular was getting fairly close to hitting pan on some of the shades. I have 2 eyeshadow palettes in this project as well as 2 face palettes in this project, and I also have some amazingly exciting news in terms of this project this month. The first one we might start off with is the one that I'm not making the most progress on. This is the palette that I am the most disappointed with at the moment because I am just not seeing any signs of progress on this palette, and this is my ABH contour kit. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills contour kit. This is like their original formula of this contour kit. It comes with 6 shades in here. It has 3 like bronzing contour powders up the top here, and then we have a highlighter and 2 like setting powders. Now the 2 setting powders are the ones that I am using the most consistently. They are being used pretty much every single day, and I do like a little bit of a swirl in the banana powder and a little bit of a swirl in the like skin tone powder, and you can definitely see that we are getting a bit of a dip in both of them. Considering the amount of times that I've used this palette, I'm actually really disappointed with the progress that I am seeing on this palette. So last month I mentioned that I might potentially repress some of these shades and maybe do a bit of like frankening with this palette, and the more and more that I play with this palette, the more and more that is becoming a real possibility for me, because I'm just not, one, I'm not seeing any progress on it, and 2, that is kind of, not that I am not enjoying this palette, because to me it's just like a whatever palette. It's not something that I like really get that much joy out of, but I don't hate using it because it's just a bit of a whatever step in my routine. So I think that I am going to franken these. Maybe, I keep saying that, but maybe I could make a video. Would you guys like to see a video of me frankening this palette and see what I can create? Maybe we can sit down together. I can like try and do some overhead and we can maybe have a play and see what we can create with this palette. If I do create something with this palette, I probably will either repress it into these pans or press it into something else, but I will still include it in this project. So if I end up like mixing some of these together or something and creating a Franken product, I'm gonna include that Franken product in this project anyway as part of this palette. Yeah, as you can see, there is like barely any use on any of these. Like I've mentioned that there's a dip in these, but you can barely see it. Like I can see it from my naked eye, but I know when I try and take photos of this or when I show you in the camera, it's gonna like be almost impossible to show up on camera. So that's that. So this palette at the February update weighed in at 194.63 grams, and now it weighs in at 194.2 grams. So I have used 0.4 of a gram. I haven't used a whole gram completely since I started this palette. So the intro weight for me was 194.98 grams. We're getting kind of close to having used up a complete gram. But this palette has a total of 18 grams of product, so it's going to be a very long haul with this palette. And I don't know. These are very densely pressed powders, and they're very stiff powders, so it's going to be a really slow and steady slog for me on this palette. I don't know, it's just a little bit disappointing, that's all. So yeah, that's the update on this palette. I'm going to toss that one to the side because it's the biggest disappointment of the month. Okay, now the next three palettes I have, so we have the Lorac Pro 1, my Too Faced Love Flush Wardrobe, and my Dose of Colors Marvelous Mauves palette. Now, I have some really exciting news when it comes to these palettes. I have panned in all of these palettes. It was a really successful month this month when it came to my pan those eyeshadows. I am over the moon with how well I've done with these palettes this month. So my progress and my success on these palettes does kind of outshine, and it keeps me motivated when I'm thinking about my ABH palettes. So let's get on into these and let's talk about our progress. So the first palette that I hit pan on this month was my Dose of Color Marvelous Mauves palette. Now, I introduced this into the project deliberately because I had a feeling that I was going to hit pan on one of the shades in this palette quite quickly, and I was right. So if you can see, I managed to hit pan on this middle one right here. Now, this one in the middle had quite a considerable dip in it when I introduced this palette into the project, so I'm not really surprised that I managed to hit pan on that shade in particular. These two at the end here, I would also like to hit pan on at some point. They're the two lighter colors, and they both also have a really considerable dip in them as well. But I do think that pan on those two is further away. It probably take me maybe, the way I use this palette this month, it probably will take me at least maybe another 2 months if I continue to use this palette the same amount that I used it this month. And then the two really deep colors, my aim is to wear the imprint off these. And I did manage to wear the imprint off this one quite a bit. I've probably worn it off about half of the pan there. So next month, or this month, we're in April now. This month I'm going to try and continue to wear the imprint off this one, and I might try and work on this one a little bit, but obviously I'm going to try and get to the pan on both of these as well. So this one weighed in at 86.76 grams when I introduced it, and we are now at 86.5 grams. So I've used up a total of 26 grams. So we've used over 1/4 gram, which I think is absolutely amazing. So we've used over 1/4 gram, which I think is fantastic. This one has a total of 1.7 grams in each of the pans. So yeah, I think that pan is a very real possibility on both of those two lighter colors if I dedicate some time to them. I love using this palette. I just find this palette such a joy to use. You guys know, if you've been here for any amount of time, I love mauve eyeshadows, so I definitely really enjoy using this. I find it a pleasure to work with. The Dose of Colors formula is really nice and blendable, and I always love the looks that I create when I use this palette. The look that I create with this palette is pretty much the same every time, but I just love the way it looks on me. I find purple eyeshadows for my skin tone and my eye color really flattering, so I always enjoy using this eyeshadow palette. I love the tones of these. I think it's a great little palette, so yes, love this palette. And then the second palette that I managed to hit pan on this month is this one right here. This is the Too Faced Love Flush Wardrobe. Can you guys guess which palette? Can you guys guess which blush I managed to hit pan on? I was focusing like crazy on one color this month because I was determined to hit pan. So I managed to hit pan on Baby Love, and I also managed to hit quite a considerable amount of pan. Last month, the side of this pan, like around this area here, was getting really quite low. I've managed to like tear through that, and I've got a really considerable amount of pan on that one right there. Going forward this month, I would really like to probably finish that one up, but I think I would find it way more satisfying to see more pan on this palette. So I think for now I'm going to leave this one. I probably will still touch into it here and there, but I think I'm going to move the dedication of this palette to another color, and I think I'm going to start moving up towards this end of the palette, mainly focusing on these three colors, especially for the next couple of months as we're coming into winter here in Australia. I'm probably going to be reaching more for these like purpley toned blushes. So I think for the next couple of months I'm probably going to be focusing on this end of the palette as opposed to the warmer tones. And then if I need to, I can still dip into these other colors, but I think I'm definitely going to move my focus towards this end of the palette as we move into winter. And hopefully I can get rid of the imprints on the pans, as well as see some considerable progress and the pans lowering and the pans getting really low in this palette. This one, like, it's definitely very humbling, this palette. It's definitely a hard one to pan. I thought that I would make a lot more progress on this palette than I am, but these blushes are a lot more firmly packed than the Benefit blushes that I find quite easy to pan, and they're also a lot more pigmented. So for me, with my pale skin tone, some of these show up quite a lot. I do find these really nice and blendable though. I find that if I do go heavy-handed and overboard, I can blend it out quite easily. That being said, it doesn't make it any easier for me being so pale to pan this palette, because a little bit does show up quite a lot on my skin tone. But I am super happy with the pan in this palette, and it does motivate me to keep going, because it does seem that pan does exist in this palette. It doesn't seem like a black hole of blush. There definitely is an end in sight when it comes to this palette. I think I'm about I definitely think maybe I am almost halfway through this pan here. Maybe a little bit, maybe like a quarter of a way through this pan. And then the rest of them I've barely touched. So like I said, I definitely want to move towards this end of the palette for the next couple of months, and we'll see how we go. Hopefully next month I can see these three blushes here without the imprint on them. Do I think that can happen? Maybe at least one of them. I have a tendency to like just pick one blush and focus on it until I'm done with it. So you might see the imprint on these three gone. You might see that I've just really focused in on one of them. But the way I like to pan is I just like really focus on one product. And then like I find it, especially with blushes, I find it quite hard to like share my attention across multiple. So this palette has definitely been a bit of a test for me, trying to like focus my attention across 6 blushes. But I think the way that we're tracking, it's taken me 3 months to hit pan on one blush and make a fairly, like a quarter of the blush is a fairly decent amount of progress. I think that I will probably get pan on maybe 4 of these this year, hopefully. I would like to see pan on at least 4 of these. I definitely think, like, I thought that I would have this one completely done in 2020, but I don't think that one's going to happen. I think that I could potentially get this completely done in 21, but I don't think the way I'm tracking I will get this done in 2020, unfortunately. But this just goes to show how long it takes you to get through a blush. These are all minis, and it's taken me like 3.5 months to make this kind of progress on these 2 blushes. So I would say probably used the equivalent of like 1 blush in total with the progress I've made on these 2. But that's taken me 3 months to use up like 1 blush. So yeah, I hope that puts it into perspective for you guys, and I hope that makes you understand why I'm so hesitant to buy new blushes. As much as I like to talk about how pretty blushes are in my weekly live stream, this is why I'm so hesitant to actually go out and buy new blushes. Anyway, that's enough rambling about this palette. This one weighed in at 130.21 grams last month, and it now weighs in at 129.12 grams. So I have dropped almost 2 grams. So I'm pretty accurate with my estimate on the amount of progress that I've made between those two blushes. It is almost the equivalent of one whole blush. I'm still making pretty good progress. I'm happy with the progress that I'm making. I would like to see quicker progress, but I'm still happy with the progress that I'm making, and I have finally managed to hit pan on a blush, and I definitely feel like that has motivated me to keep going, which is the main thing. And the last palette that I managed to hit pan on this month is the Lorac Pro 1 palette. I introduced this one last month because I wanted a change, and I had heard that this formula is pretty easy to pan, and I discovered that this month. So I did manage to hit pan on this color white here. It's a fairly decent amount of pan as well. That color is pretty much the only color this month that I have used the majority. Every other color I've dipped in maybe once or twice, but I have been focusing on other palettes. I have been focusing on the 2 shades that I have in my Naked 1 palette in my pan roulette, as well as this one. So the color white I have been using basically every time I've used my makeup, which is why I managed to hit pan on it. But everything else I've only kind of dipped in. You can see the slightest little dips in colors here and there, but white is the only one that I have managed to hit pan on. Are you guys going to be... There it is. There she is. And I don't think you're going to be able to see any of the other dips because they're only ever so slight, the dips in the other pans. This month, this coming month, I would like to hit pan in the color cream, which I think is a very real possibility. And then I think I would like to see a little bit more use out of the color taupe, like onwards, like taupe all the way through to this one. I think cream I can easily incorporate into my makeup like every single day, so I think it will be pretty easy for me to hit pan on the color cream. It's just the other colors that are similar to other colors that I have in my other palettes. So for example, like the color light pink and mauve, they're very similar to the colors in this Dose of Colors palette, and then the color taupe and sable are quite similar to the 2 colors, the 2 eyeshadows out of my Naked 1 palette that I'm trying to pan at the moment. And then these colors, Espresso and Black, I don't grab for on a daily basis, but I think I could definitely incorporate them in some way into more eyeshadow looks to just see a little bit more of a dip in them. So this one weighed in at 128.3 grams last month, and this month it weighs in at 127.42 grams. So I've almost used up an entire gram of this palette this month, which is really satisfying. Really satisfying. I have found this formula really enjoyable. I've always enjoyed the Lorac Pro formula. I found it really enjoyable. It's quite easy to pan. It's not too powdery. I find it's a really nice formula to work with, and it's easy. It's easy-ish to pan. From what I've discovered so far, it's pretty easy to pan. So if you want a palette that you want to like basically get some easy pan on, or you want something that's not so much of a challenge to start like a pan that palette challenge with, if you have a Lorac palette, I would recommend grabbing it out and giving it a try, because so far I've found it fairly easy to pan. But I'll keep you updated in the coming months how I go with the darker shades, and I'll let you know, and you'll get to see my progress, how I'm tracking with the rest of this palette in the coming months. So that's my progress on my 4 palettes in my Pan That Palette series. Did really well on these 3 palettes this month. Still having trouble with this ABH contour kit. Like I said, I'm probably going to sit down and franken some products in this palette. So if you want to see that, if you want to see a video of me doing that and how I go about doing it, let me know down in the comments box if that's something that you would like to see. And hopefully for the coming month with these palettes, especially these 2 eyeshadow palettes, I would like to see more pan on both of these. And then with my Love Flush palette, I would like to see the imprint wear down on those 3 darker colors. So we'll see how we go with that goal this month. Fingers crossed we can continue this kind of progress. I'm so proud of myself this month. Let me know down in the comments box how you are going with your palettes that you have in your Pan That Palette challenge. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up if you love seeing pan in. If you want to keep up to date on my Pan That Palette challenge, I do these videos monthly. So if you want to keep up to date, then I hope you'll consider subscribing down below. That's it for this video, everyone. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I hope you are staying safe, healthy, and looking after yourself as well as your loved ones. And I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, everyone.